Hey there, YouTube! Before I get into the video, let me remind you, if you like my content, hit that like and subscribe button. And also, if you feel the need to support me, hit me up on my Patreon at patreon.com/uncommonramen, capital U, capital R. I do all of this in my free time, so any amount of support can help me bring more of this content to you more often. I guess without further ado, let's jump in. We got Jedit Ojanen, Mercenary. This is a Bant commander. He is 1, a white and a blue for a 3/3. Whenever Jedit Ojanen, Mercenary, or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 green. If you do, create a 2/2 green cat warrior creature token with Forest Walk. So we're going to do legendary shenanigans in here. Next up, we're going to take a look at the creatures, starting with Adrix and Nev, Twin Casters. This is 2, a green and a blue for a 2/2 with Ward 2. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Next up, we have Benny Brax for 3 and a white. It's a 3/2 with Convoke. At the end of each turn, if you've created a token that turn, draw a card. Brago King Eternal for 2, a white and a blue. This is a 2/4 with flying. When Brago King Eternal deals combat damage to a player, exile any number of target non-land permanents you control, then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Delighted Halfling for 1 green. It's a 1/2. You can tap it for colorless, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Spend that mana only to cast a legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered. Edric, Spymaster of Trust. This is 1, a green and a blue for a 2/2. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. Feline Sovereign for 2 and a green. It's a 2/3. Other cats you control get +1/+1 and have protection from dogs. Whenever 1 or more cats you control deal combat damage to a player, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment that player controls. Gandalf the White for 3 and 2 white. It is a 4/5 with flash. You may cast a legendary spell You may cast legendary spells and artifact spells as though they had flash. If a legendary permanent or an artifact entering or leaving the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Sorry about that. Gold Forged Thopteryx for 1 white and 1 blue. It's a 1/3 with flying and lifelink. Each legendary permanent you control has Ward 2. Inga and Essica for 2, a green and a blue. It's a 4/4. Creatures you control have vigilance and tap, add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if 3 or more mana from creatures was spent to cast it, draw a card. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest for 2 and a green is a 2/3. Tokens you control have tap to add green and choose a background. Jazal, Goldmane for 2 and 2 white is a 4/4 with first strike. 3 and 2 white. Attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. Jedit Ojanen of Afrava, 3 and 3 green for a 5/5 with Forest Walk. Whenever Jedit Ojanen of Afrava attacks or blocks, create a 2/2 green warrior creature token with green cat warrior creature token with Forest Walk. K9 Mark 1 for 1 blue. It's a 1/1 negative. As long as K9 Mark 1 is untapped, other legendary creatures you control have Ward 1. Affirmative for 1, a blue. You can tap this. Target legendary creature can't be blocked this turn. It is Doctor's Companion. Kahira, the Orphan Guard for 1 and 2 hybrid green whites. It is a 3/2 with Companion. Don't worry about that text. It has Vigilance, and each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/+1 and has Vigilance. King Darian, the I don't know which generation, I'm sorry about that, YouTube. For 1, a green and white is a 2/3. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. For 3, a green and a white, you put a +1/+1 counter on King Darian and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. You can also sacrifice King Darian. Creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Kolvori, God of Kinship for 2 and 2 green. It is a 2/4. As long as you control 3 or more legendary creatures, it gets +4/+2 and Vigilance. For 1 and a green, you can tap it and look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a legendary creature card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Don't worry about the back. It does not have any synergies with this deck. Kutzel Malamut Exemplar is 2, a green and a white. It's a 3/3. Your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control, each with power greater than its base power, deals combat damage to a player, you get to draw a card. Lauren of the Third Path for 2 and a white. It's a 2/1 with Vigilance. When Lauren of the Third Path enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. You can also tap this, and you and target opponent each draw a card. Miri, Weatherlight Duelist for 1, a green and a white, is a 3/2 with First Strike. Whenever Miri, Weatherlight Duelist attacks, each opponent can't block with more than 1 creature this combat. As long as Miri, Weatherlight Duelist is tapped, no more than 1 creature can attack you each combat. Mondrak, Glory Dominus for 2 and 2 white is a 4/4. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. For 1 and 2 Phyrexian white mana, sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures. Put an indestructible counter on Mondrak, Glory Dominus. Niambi, Esteemed Speaker for 1 white and a blue. It is a 2/1 with Flash. When Niambi, Esteemed Speaker enters the battlefield, you may return another target creature you control to its owner's hand. If you do, you gain life equal to that creature's converted mana cost. For 1, a white and a blue, you may tap this and discard a legendary card to draw 2 cards. We have Oji, the Exquisite Blade for 2, a white and a blue. It is a 2/3. When Oji, the Exquisite Blade, enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and scry 2. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. We have Pippin, Guard of the Citadel for 1 white and a blue. It is a 2/2 with Vigilance and Ward 1. You can tap it, and another target creature you control gains protection from a card type of your choice until end of turn. We have Prava of the Steel Legion, 2 and a white for a 1/4. As long as it's your turn, creature tokens you control get +1/+4, and for 3 and a white, you can create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. It also has partner. Queen Elenol of Ruadak? I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, for 1 green and 2 white, it is a star. It has power and toughness equal to the number of creatures you control. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. Wrath Compassion, Ship's Mage for 2, a white and a blue. It is a 3/3 with Flash and Flying. You may cast historic spells as though they had Flash. We have Reiki, the History of Kamigawa. This is 2 and a green for a 1/2. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, draw a card. We have Riss, the Redeemed for 1 hybrid green-white mana. It is a 1/1, and for 2 and a hybrid green-white, you can tap this to put a 1/1 green and white elf warrior creature token into play. For 4 and 2 hybrid green-white, you can tap this, and for each creature token you control, you get to put a token into play that is a copy of that creature. We have Shalai, Voice of Plenty for 3 and a white is a 3/4 with Flying. You and planeswalkers you control and other creatures you control have hexproof. And for 4 and 2 green, you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Teshar, Ancestor's Apostle for 3 and a white. This is a 2/2 with Flying. Whenever you cast a historic spell, target creature card with mana value 3 or return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Thassa, Deep Dwelling for 3 and a blue. It is a 6/5 with Indestructible. As long as your devotion to blue is less than 5, it isn't a creature. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to 1 target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. And for 3 and a blue, you can tap another target creature. Torrens, Fist of the Angels. This is 1, a green and a white for a 2/2 with Training. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green-white human soldier creature token with Training. Yasharn, Implacable Earth for 2, a green and a white is a 4/4. When Yasharn enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle. Players can't pay life or sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. And then finally we have Yoshimaru, Ever Faithful for 1 white. It is a 1/1. Whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru. Ever Faithful, it also has partner. Next up, we're going to take a look at instants. Starting with Beast Within, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Counterspell for 2 blue, counter target spell. Crop Rotation for 1 green. As an additional cost to cast Crop Rotation, sacrifice a land, search your library for a land card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Dovin's Veto for 1 white and 1 blue. This card cannot be countered, and it counters target non-creature spell. Ephemerate for 1 white. You get to blink a creature, and it has Rebound. Generous Gift for 2 and a white. Destroy target permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 elephant creature token. Green elephant creature token. Heroic Intervention for 1 and a green. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Path to Exile for 1 white, exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And Swords to Plowshare for 1 white, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Next up is sorceries. We have Cultivate for 2 and a green. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. Reveal those cards, put 1 into your hand and 1 onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. Farseek for 1 and a green. Search your library for a plains, island, swamp, or mountain card. Put that onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Kamal's Druidic Vow for X and 2 green. You may only cast this if you have a legendary creature in play. Legendary creature or planeswalker. Look at the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of land and or legendary permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest into your graveyard. Nature's Lore for 1 and a green. Search your library for any forest card, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. Rampant Growth for 1 and a green. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. 3 Visits for 1 and a green. Search your library for a forest card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Urza's Ruinous Blast for 4 and a white. Same thing, you can't cast this unless you have a legendary creature or planeswalker, and exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Sorry about that. Next up is Artifacts. Starting with Arcane Signet for 2. You can tap this to add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. We have Avacyn's Memorial for 5 and 3 white. It has Indestructible, and other legendary permanents you control have Indestructible. Conjurer's Closet for 5. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under your control. We have Hero's Podium for 5. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other legendary creature you control, and you may pay X and tap this to look at the top X cards of your library. You may reveal a legendary creature card from among them, put it into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Relic of Legends costs 3. You can tap it for tap it to add 1 mana of any color, and you can tap an untapped legendary creature you control to add 1 mana of any color. Simic Signet, it costs 2. You can pay 1 to tap it for green-blue. Soul Ring costs 1. You can tap it for 2 colorless. And then Tangle Root, which costs 3. Whenever you cast a creature spell, that you add a green mana to your mana pool. Sorry, it's not may. Next up is enchantments, starting with Anointed Procession. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many tokens instead. Aura Shards for 1 and a green and white. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy target artifact or enchantment. Flowering of the White Tree for 2 white. Legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have Ward 1. Non-legendary creatures you control get +1/+1. Inspiring Leader for 2 and a white. Commander creatures you control have creature tokens you control have +2/+2. Intangible Virtue for 1 and a white. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 and have Vigilance. And then Teleportation Circle for 3 and a white at the beginning of your end step. Exile up to 1 target artifact or creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Next up is non-basic lands. Starting with Bountiful Promenade, which is a crowd land for green-white. We have Breeding Pool, which is a shock land for blue-green and has basic land typings. Canopy Vista, which is a check land for green-white, which also has basic land typings. Command Tower, which taps for your commander's color identity. Dream Root, which is a trek land for green-blue. Exotic Orchard, which taps for mana that your opponent's lands can tap for. Gaia's Cradle, which adds green for each creature you control. Hallowed Fountain, which is a shock land for blue-white and has basic land typings. Misty Rainforest, which is a fetch land for blue-green. Overgrown Farmland, which is a check land for green-white. Plaza of Heroes, you can tap this for colorless, or you can tap this to add 1 mana of any color and spend that mana only to cast legendary spells, or you can tap this to add 1 mana of any color among legendary permanents you control, and you can pay 3 and tap this to exile it to have target legendary creature gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. We have Prairie Stream, which is a check land for blue-white and also has basic land typings. We have Rejuvenating Springs, which is a crowd land for green-blue. We have Sea of Clouds, which is a crowd land for white-blue. We have Seaside Citadel, which is a triome for green, white, and blue. We have Spara's Headquarters, which is also a triome for green, white, and blue and has basic land typings. We have Sun Petal Grove, which is a check land for green-white. We have Temple Garden, which is a shock land for green-white and has basic land typings. We have Windswept Heath, which is a fetch land for green-white. We have Yavimaya Coast, which is a pain land for green-blue. And then we have Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, which says each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. And then finally, we have the basic lands. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 forests, 1, 2 islands, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plains. So that is the Jedit Ojanen Mercenary deck tech. Bant is difficult for me to build for because I don't find a lot of the Bant legends to be really all that interesting. And even this one ended up being kind of a token +1/+1 counter strategy, which if it wasn't a bunch of legendary creatures crammed into one deck, I don't know if I would have been all that interested in it. But I have played this a couple of times. It was really fun to play. I like blinking. I like the blink mechanic in this and being able to just create a bunch of little cat warriors. The Forest Walk has been a big part of this deck in almost every game that I've played. And in general, it was just a really interesting deck to pilot. We have several token doublers in here, including Anointed Procession and Adrix and Nev. We have quite a few things that get payoffs for legendary permanents. And yeah, that's my deck tech for Jedit Ojanen Mercenary. So if you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Keep positive. I will remove negative comments. And I think that's it, guys. Until next time. Peace.